Capri coming into the larger Indian sports ecosystem now, we are thinking more about what can we bring new into the system. So there have been a lot of other organizations that have been a part of sports and have been contributing to sports for the last decade. Since we are the new kid on the block, we're thinking about what's next, what's the next decade looking like for the sporting ecosystem in India. Something that I'm extremely passionate about and have worked for the last couple of years has been on the gender and climate piece, specifically in India. And I think that's very relevant in sports as well. So we are looking at investing more in women's sport. I think cricket is just the start of that. We're also looking at other sports, we're looking at recreational sports, how the fitness community for women can be grown even more. So that's something that we're really passionate about. I think even from the sporting consumption perspective, right? So where the sports content is coming from. So apart from the sports franchises that we're managing, we're also really interested to explore more opportunities in the sports content consumption space. And also in creating a more engaged and integrated audience experience. So currently under Capri Sports, we have 4 franchises, 2 of which are our indigenous sports, Kabaddi and Kho-Kho. And we have the women's cricket team, UP Warriorz, and an international cricket team, Sharjah Warriors. So between contact sports and cricket, we've got a solid, 4 franchise, especially this season. We have all 4 going into season together, so it's going to be quite exciting for us. It'll be superb if we come out with 4 championships, and that's something that we're all working towards. But more importantly, all 4 come from the warrior mentality. So we've really spent some time trying to think about, what are the franchises about. Coming under the ownership of Capri Global, we've looked at, what Capri Global stands for, and a lot of it comes from our main business, which is in loans to the underserved population of India. So the grit, the determination, inclusivity, all of this is built into our heritage, our lineage, and we've taken that further into sports and said that how do we look at building a team that is about inclusivity, so looking at gender as an important piece, looking at accessibility. So Kho-Kho is an indigenous sport, it is still very grassroots, and we want to make sure that we can take it up and make it popular again. So all of this is built into the ethos of the teams, especially the warrior mentality. I think something we keep discussing with our players is that we want to make sure that we speak the same language to all our teams, and a lot of it is around making sure that we are, paying respect to our opponents, because without opponents, the sport loses its value. So we want to look at integrity, we want to look at mutual respect, we want to keep talking about never backing down, giving it your all, because that is what Warriors are about. And so I hope that the teams are also able to showcase that this season. So we are extremely focused with what we want to do with our CSR funding. We're looking at integrating education and sports together. So kicking off in UP, we're going to be looking at working with different schools where young girls are often enrolled or drop out of because of lack of opportunity and accessibility, and finding a way to bring in sports through infrastructure and employment opportunities as well. So one of the organizations that we partnered with is Project Khel in UP, and they are looking at using sport as a way to not only engage young students to come to school, but also employment opportunities. So they're looking at slightly older children that are playing ultimate frisbee and getting them more experiences outside of India, getting them into tournaments, giving them life skills that essentially helps them get employed. So that's a really unique proposition that we were really excited to come across and get partnered with. But apart from that, I think we're looking at gender as a huge piece through our CSR funding. So how do we get more young girls to experience sport? Because sport is not only from an athlete development perspective, right? We're also looking at holistic development of young girls. So whether the menstrual piece comes in, whether the overall sort of nutrition piece comes in, education, everything is linked together. And if we are able to use sport as a way to impact multiple aspects of their life, I think that'll be like our money well spent. The first season was quite a whirlwind, but we've had a fantastic experience. I think the players really came in with all heart and really worked with each other, including the overseas players and the Indian players. So that was really heartening for us to see that not only were they so excited for WPL as a platform, but also to be, especially for the overseas players, to be in India is after the World Cup where they're so exhausted, mentally drained. But coming in here, they didn't back down. They continued giving their all. So as a franchise, I don't think we could have asked for a better experience, both from the league perspective, even with the players. But now we want to take it to the next level. Now that we've had a lot of time to build ourselves up as well, I think this season is going to be really exciting. We have a lot of interesting announcements coming soon for what we're doing this season. But most importantly, we want to look at creating a team that's going to get us to the finals and potentially win. So with the auction coming up, we've already had a couple of camps before, and this was closer to the auction with the intention of giving our players that were available the chance to come back. Let's work on their fitness, give them specific skills training that they needed. For trials, the intention was to see a set of potential players again, see them with our players and figure out what our coaches think about them, so that we're really ready as we go to the auction very shortly. We're ready with all of the data that we need to make the squad even stronger. So our auction plan is that it's going to be relatively easier because it's a smaller auction. We have a very specific target in mind, on what roles we want to fill into the squad that's going to make it stronger. We've retained a really strong core, and so now there are very specific roles that we want to fill, and we're working towards that. So with the trials and the camp, that has helped us understand and set a strategy in place, and I'm sure that we'll be able to accomplish that in the auction. Having spent a lot of time in close quarters with the players last season, and also seeing how the fans just showed up for women's cricket, I think it was really heartening for even the players to see how the fans came in, cheered all the teams. So it was very encouraging. But more importantly, having spent that much time, I learned a lot about the players and where they've come from, and the stories that really need to be shown on a global scale, because there's such an interest in cricket. But more importantly, women's cricket is still breaking out, and we felt that a documentary, a sports documentary, would be a really exciting way to not only show what it takes to run a franchise, but more importantly, how the players prep for it and what challenges and opportunities women have today in sports. We have such exciting players, across all the teams, whether it's your Australian players, English players, South African players. There are also players coming in from associate nations. Indian players, they all have really exciting journeys, their triumphs, their struggles, all of which will kind of continue building on as WPL grows. And we wanted to find a way to showcase all of that, and short form content and long form content that happens in season is one way of doing it, but we're taking it one step further. We want to give you exclusive access to what's happening, stories that have never surfaced. Mainstream media, I think, is still picking up on women's cricket. It's not had its moment where the coverage has been anywhere close to what men's sports get. So the documentary is going to be really exciting on that front, where you're going to be able to hear about things that you may have missed, because that kind of coverage was just not given to women's sport before. I think more excitingly, we are looking at taking this on a global scale, because we have a really renowned director that's coming in from the US, Arlene Nelson, who has worked on sports documentaries before. We have a global production house coming in. So we're looking at taking this to not just the Indian audience, but also to the audiences across the world that have now realized that cricket ends up being the most exciting sport in India, and therefore globally also the diaspora that has spread, the Indian diaspora across the world, has such an interest in covering more, learning more about these stories. So the documentary is going to serve that purpose, and we're very excited to bring to you these stories very shortly. It's going to be we've already started shooting. We're going to be shooting through the season, and soon it will be on an OTT.